Hello everyone, and welcome back to the final round of Let's Make Hybrids. This is prompt number 10, with the theme being monsters and kaijus combined with your favourite animal. And before we begin, I do just want to give a very sincere thank you to the overall success and enthusiasm that everyone has shown in this series thus far. This has lasted a good 6 months. I've gotten about just shy of 1,000 submissions, which is a lot more than I bargained for. And I've had the pleasure of meeting just so many new, incredible, talented, wonderful and kind people, many of whom I now consider my friends as well. And as I said, I'm just extremely grateful, and it's going to be wonderful to see this respectfully concluded, and I had the time to actually sit back and get to know these people. So again, thank you all very, very much. And for the big finale, we've got, what, another 80 submissions, I think? So tuck in, I'm going to try be respectfully fast, but we're going to try and nail it down today. And thus, with our very first submission of the day, we had the Scottish Fold mixed with a PolarMo by AriHellNow444. The immediate thing I love here is all the scaling techniques. The pattern just looks absolutely wonderful, and I especially like the more playful posing on the right hand side there. And for Ari's second submission is a Honeybee and a Gyros, which is an absolute wonderful combination, and something I really would love to see coloured. I think I'd have some like very vibrant colour schemes knowing the Great Gyros, and yeah, just sound badass. Coming up next is Firegator Thursday with a Saltwater Crocodile and Auger. Really loving the varying line art, especially around the face and all the markings on the back. I think the darker overall outline really brings out from the page, and I just especially love the expression of the face and just how the teeth are defined. And next by Abyss Arachnus, we have the Deep Sea Dragonfish and Volovidon. The overall way this piece is illustrated just looks incredible. I especially just love how fuzzy it looks. It really does just give like a very good, low quality, ancient old photo kind of feel to it. It just feels very old fashioned, especially with the blood spatter as well. Just gives that such an extra dynamic, and I think this has an overall very powerful, very surreal, very mysterious, and I think Abyss Arachnus has really nailed that style perfectly. And next by Caliber Lights, we have Godzilla, Lagiacrus, and an Axolotl. I absolutely love the scale work on this. I especially really like how all the Godzilla spikes really shift and change, and how they vary, especially the three larger, more pale ones just behind the shoulders there, in contrast to all the dark ones. The face looks wonderful, and as I've always said before, I'm really a fan of Caliber Lights line art, sketching and techniques. And next by Blue, we have the Canine Kaiju. A cute and simple design. I especially like how the markings vary along the face and the underjaw. I do like the glowy blues. Following up next is Dino Crus with a Gulo Day, which is based on the Bobbit Worm, Dragonhead Caterpillar, and Tardigrade. This is absolutely stunning, just everything about the form and just the way it's been designed. You can tell a lot of thought has been put into it, and the overall background just really kind of sets it apart as well and just makes it pop out the page. I love the absolute precision of all the line work and just how everything just fits together so perfectly. It's such a cool and unique design as well, and it all just, as I said, just looks perfect. I think Dino has nailed a really interesting design here. And next up we have Diego with their Zebra and Danny Ibnu Kaiju. The markings on this are absolutely stunning, just the overall scale texture in conjunction with all the stripes. It looks beautiful and very clean, and the construction of the skull matches it nicely. Next we have Elmdale Art with their King Pingdora, Lord of the Arctic Blue, which is based on Ghidorah, Emperor, Chinstrap, and Little Blue Penguins. I think this is such a wonderful combination. The idea of a penguin Ghidorah did sound quite daft, and yet Elmdale has massively poured it off into a very stunning and beautiful design. It just fits together so well. Absolutely love the coloration, and I do think that all the gold designs are very, very nice touch. It's also cool seeing a bit more of a feathered variation of Ghidorah, and it makes me very curious to see what other kind of Ghidorah themes that Elmdale could pull off as well. Next by Discovery 17, we've got the Grey Wolf and Zilla. A really badass looking modelled piece. The rendering looks absolutely fantastic. It really brings it out to life. I also like the pedestals. It really makes it look like a little figurine. I also actually quite like the very lean looking anatomy there, and I think that the mane and fur looks absolutely stunning. Next by Zik Dragon, we have the Gigan and Pterodactyl hybrids, which looks like a very sinister, maybe somewhat insane looking Disney enemy. I think it looks absolutely incredible, especially in the second image. The expression is just absolutely perfect, and the way that it waves his blade arms around really does add to the insane expression. And I think Zik's just done a very powerful job of showing the emotion and the personality in this character. Not to mention the illustration itself is just fantastically done. Next by Hazilla, we have Kong Chidna, which I think is meant to be an echidna with Kong. Very interesting combination. And I absolutely just love the overall action pose in this. That is really cool, and has, I want to see more of this from you. What is coming out of the screen and coming towards the viewer looks really cool. Next up by Foxweapon, we have King Anguirus, which is based on Anguirus, Jackson's Chameleon, Alligator Snapping Turtle, Tetsukabra, and Radovan. This is awesome. I especially just love all the teeth, the tusks, and the horns, how everything just kind of shapes together so nicely. Nothing looks too big or too complicated or like it would clash together. It all looks perfectly placed together. and just give the appearance of like a very large, ancient, formidable creature. Especially all these spikes on the back of the head and neck really complementing it as well, and the very large segmented scales. Again, everything just places together perfectly, and I think Foxwithen's done a great job of proportioning and complementing the features together. Next by Gugenheim, we had the Arachnid from Starship Troopers and Adestus. Can I just say, I really love the addition of the two silhouettes in the upper left and right hand corners. That just does like such an effective job of just showing where everything is. But the design itself just looks really, really awesome. It kind of reminds me of a submarine, probably because I'm not familiar with Adestus itself, and probably because of the way the Arachnid fin comes out, but overall the whole design just looks incredibly clean. I love the markings in particular, it's probably my favourite part, and I especially just love how the jaw kind of crackles into the gills there. It's such a neat touch. In fact, the overall construction and shape of the mouth itself is fantastic. The whole thing just looks wonderfully polished. Next by PolarMo, we have the Aldan, or Rodal, whichever sounds better, which looks absolutely stunning. Again, I feel like I've been saying that a lot today, but you guys have really gone just like above and beyond all these prompts. You've really gone all out, and especially Polar here, the fire effects are absolutely stunning. Don't get me wrong, Rodal itself looks incredible. I love the coloration. I especially love the posing. It looks very powerful, menacing. But my goodness, you have nailed the fire effects. They are beautiful, and Polar, I want to see more. Next by Fridgemaster 27, we got the Pilated Woodpecker, Scorpion, Utahraptor, Dragon, and Phoenix. I have to admit, I now want to see woodpeckers in a lot more ideas in general. I really love the shape of the beak and the cresting in conjunction with the whole, phoenix kind of vibe. And the overall coloration, especially all the particle effects going on, gives time for a very ashy kind of environment, and it just looks kind of foreboding and really cool. Next up by physics, we've got a spore creation called the Dregzilla, which I can imagine being some kind of deep sea abyssal kaiju. Really liking the colour palette, especially all the spikes around the tip of the tail as well, and the long neck is a nice choice. Next up by Arcanine, we have the Rhinognagira, which is based on a rhino, hognose snake, and a Gajira. I really like the simplicity of this design. It just looks a bit more cartoonish, and I think that for what it is, it looks very nice and complete. I especially like the construction of the head. It gives me a bit of a old school kind of Gen 1 Pokemon vibe, and the addition of the curled tail from the chameleon is a rather unique touch. Next up by Hazilla, we have the Tadpole Shrimp and Destoroyah. Another fascinating hybrid combination. That's really interesting. And you pulled it off. It just looks like an extremely deadly, angry shrimp, and I absolutely love it. I also really appreciate the fact that you've added the two different angles in, because I think it really just portrays so much more of the creature's design itself. Since the big Destoroyah cresting, I'll call it, from the sides there could have been quite hidden, but due to the two angles, you can really see perfectly just how everything places together. And like I said, very unique, very creative, and it looks badass. Next up we got Jenna Pothier with two unique designs. The crocodile-looking one is a Capro mixed with one of her own kaijus and Odogaron, whereas the upper right one is based on a tiger and a spider mixed with another one of their own kaijus. The overall scene itself looks incredibly badass. I really like, in particular, just the varying textures of the two creatures. You can see that they're just two very distinctly different designs, and therefore a lot of different techniques and styles have gone into it, such as scales versus fur, such as spikes versus stripes. I also think that the posing itself just looks fantastic. They both just look very uniquely posed, two very unique looking animated creatures. The faces on either one of them as well are very beautiful, and Jenna, you've just done an absolutely stellar job. Next by Elephant Dog, we have a Biolante and a wolf. I really love just the hoop earrings in the ear. I don't know why, that's probably my favourite part. It's just such an interesting little edgy choice. I also just really like all the wispy parts coming out the eye as well. And what I imagine is probably covering the heart around the chest there. Again, just looks really cool. Next up by Draconic Kitsune, it's a crocodile skink and a raptor kaiju. She mentioned that they like the sketch too much not to submit it, and I have to agree, for a sketch it's really adorable, and I would like to know a bit more about the creature in the background there. Next by Cod Gamer, we have Otachi and an alligator. Absolutely love the markings on this one, very bright and vivid. Also the wicked grass spur on the tip of the tail there, and used to the Haycon parts all along the tail and around the neck and the frontal cresting. It's a really nice touch and adds some additional colouring. Next up by Savannah Dragon 0221 is a hybrid of Narajala from Monster Hunter World and a blue Glocos sea slug. And that's a beautiful combination. Can I just say, I just love how smooth and clean the stripes are themselves. They just look perfect. They wrap around the creature so well. I know it might seem like a bit of a simple thing, but doing nice clean stripes like this that follow the contours of the creature can be very challenging. I think Savannah's done an absolutely stunning job. I also really like the shading, the pale colour palette. It all just comes together so nicely to a very tranquil looking creature. And also, props to using a sea slug. There's a lot of potential to be had from that. Next up, by Caliber Light, we've got a Jaguar, Tuatora, and Teostra. Dude, the markings on this are outstanding. I just love how much it all varies and just how it all comes together. It's beautifully complex. I especially just love the bits of fur and all the spikes and such just running around basically every surface of the creature now I look at it closely. The face looks wonderful, the arms and legs look powerful. I just love all the serrated spikes, especially on the tail as well, and around the neck and chest. And those wings, the wings are absolutely stunning. Next up by Jacob Solar, we have the Spearang Mantis Shrimp and a Kraken, but imagined as an actual real-life creature, as opposed to fantasy. And what I really like about this one is just the overall textures. The textures are just very eerie. It really gives off the vibe of just some kind of very deep-sea, abyssal kind of creature. The eyes themselves, I love that stripe in them. Looks rather haunting and sinister, and overall everything looks very spooky and very, very effective. Next up by Jenna is the Wildebeest from Untitled Dragon 2 and an anglerfish. What another really fascinating idea. I now want to see all sorts of Wildebeests and Untitled Dragon hybrids. This looks badass, and in combination with an anglerfish as well, so interesting because it's basically a polar opposite. In the sense that it goes from like this bright white creature into a very dark but glowing. So some kind of like an aberrant vibe, which would actually fit very well in the third movie with all the glowing effects. Overall, just looks really fantastic. I especially just like all the markings and the way the eyes kind of glow and really sets off the face compared to the rest of the creature. Looks very, very eerie. Next by Hazilla, we have the Jowie and the Titanosaurus, which looked badass, my dude. I especially just love how the frills vary so much, like throughout the spine, just around the rear, the various parts of the tail as well. Also around the knees, the arms, legs. Oh god, everything just looks so cool about this. Maybe I'm biased because Jowie, but the frills in particular just look stunning. Also just all the much harder osteoderms running down the back there. I think just the hands in particular just look really badass, just the way they're very curved and have like these little mini wings in a way, and the head looks gorgeous. Next by Zik Dragon is a Terror of Mechagodzilla. That threw me up a little bit, but it looks fantastic. Can I just say, the shading on this is utterly immaculate. You've really nailed that robot texture there, especially for something akin to Mechagodzilla or the Iron Giant. I think it looks stunning. I especially just love the plasma laser coming out the mouth, and the overall form on this looks beautiful. Plus, it contrasts wonderfully with the background. Next by Firegator Thursday is an unnamed hybrid, which I can only guess might be based on a phoenix, of course, and maybe something like Rodan. Not sure, but I really adore the colour palette. I also really like just the big wispy yellow parts coming beneath the wings there. The fact that it's blind is a very interesting touch. And I just want to note that having a red pencil outline which looks beautiful and matches it perfectly. Next up by Gugenheim, we have the Dragon God from Demon Souls and the Xenomorph from Aliens and a Goblin Shark. There is a lot to say about this. I want to be quick, so what I'm going to say is the shading and lighting is by far my favourite part. You've nailed the shading and lighting so much. Actually, to be fair, also the coloration around the face and the neck, and also just all the ridges and constructional shapes around the shoulder, the arm and the chest. Like I said, there's a lot to say about this. It's absolutely stunning. Guggenheim, please be proud of yourself. You've achieved something incredible with this. Next up by Zeppelin King, we have the Predator King from Transformers and a wolf, a favourite animal. Another very interesting and unique hybrid concept. I especially like all the horns around the face, as they really stand out and add a lot to the construction, and I also just like all the glowing effects around the wings, the ribs, the eyes and the claws. Next up by Mermaids, we have the Megaguirus and a Raptor. Really like the colour palette on this, very original, with the mossy greens and purple. Not to mention the idea of an insectoid raptor is also quite badass. And for Mermaid's second submission, it's based on Crystalak and Obsidius as cats. I think my favourite part about this has to be just the contrasting colours, and especially just all the glowing, such as around all the fire on Obsidius's part, and all the shimmering purple on Crystalak, not to mention a big amber eyes. And next up by G. Gabriel BF is a pangolin combined with Xenogra. Knowing this is a traditional piece, I absolutely just love the highlighting. I don't really know how you do manage to do highlighting on paper, as I always had an issue with like the white pencils myself, but this looks absolutely stunning and it really comes out the page, especially the dark outline, and the addition of all the gold, cyans and blues really sets it off, ties it together, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. Next up by Rabina Dragon, we have a hairy frog and Toby Kadachi. God, the scale work on this one is beautiful, especially just around the chest and neck and belly. The posing is absolutely formidable, and the fur and tail really does give off that Toby Kadachi vibe, and I just especially like all the texture just around the eye, the entire mouth and tongue actually as well, and also just all the very large scales all around the back. This comes together very beautifully, and it's very satisfying to look at in terms of consistent patterns. Next up by Sommy is the Nicobar Pigeon and a Dune Worm. Another really fascinating idea, and can I just say, I absolutely love the background. Of course, I love the creature itself, the coloration in particular is beautiful, and I can only imagine how painstakingly patient you must have been doing every single individual scale, but the background just suits it wonderfully. I love how it just has the same kind of coloration. I think you've hit a very perfect balance of this, where everything is interesting to look at, but you're still drawn to the creature itself. Very impressive work. Next up we have Maeva with another wonderful caption based in Spore. Can I just say, I do find it fascinating just how you redesign the Jowie. Of course, the Jowie being a Spore creature means that people tend to use the same parts such as the crop kisser for the head, but I love how you've completely just reimagined the face. It just looks so unique, so personal and original. Not to mention the entire concept as well looks awesome, and I just especially love the great big teacup. Next by Caliber Light, we have the Dalamador, Xenodermis, and Great Serpent. One long danger noodle. Man, those are some powerful pencil techniques here. Just how dark everything is, it really pops out the page. Gives me a very tribal tattoo kind of impression. The face looks absolutely badass. The arms are spectacularly done, and I love just how neat the body looks. Next up by Hazilla, we've got Smog, a Uteranus, and a wedge-tailed eagle. Dude, I love the wings, I love the body, I love the dorsal feathery wingy parts around the rear just behind the hips. I don't know the correct name on that one, but it looks absolutely amazing, and the head really does just sell Smog perfectly. I think my favourite part about this just has to be the proportions. It just looks so grand and so powerful. Next up by LilTherapod is Hogstoroya, which is based on Destoroya and the Helpig Clade. God, this looks incredible. Again, you know, there's not enough time to say what I want to say, but just the overall theme and vibe, and all the colours are beautiful. The texture, especially along the wings as well as just the limbs, how all the texture and hide just have this very scarred, torn appearance, looks fantastic. The tail on the left there looks incredible. All the spikes are beautiful and everything looks so clean, and also just even a shadowy version, even with a lot of the details now missing, the shadow version just still shows so much. It goes for a really powerful silhouette, really powerful lighting, and again, just incredible. Next up by Danacris, we have a Gajira and Fatalis. I love the overall posing. I love how it just looks back and just how the tail just arches away, looking so big and grandiose. The musculature looks awesome, and I love the overall shading and pencil techniques. Next up by Al Grim, we have the Brocajo, the Worm Monster, which looks like a wonderfully complex and very, very spiky creature. I can only imagine the amount of time it must have taken to do every individual spike, and I think it looks fantastic. Next up by Gugenheim, we have the Cranky, which is a Carno, Anki, and Dracovish, looking like a Pokemon, which I gotta say, really nailed that style completely. I have to wonder, is there an existing Pokemon like this that has like little DNA strand in between the two creatures? Because I don't know if there is or not, but it just looks so Pokemon that I'm really impressed at how well you pulled this off. It's awesome, dude, and a really cool concept. Next up by Unstable Mystery, we have a large pink bunny. You know what? It's a wonderful pink bunny. I love just how serene it looks, and yet the eyes are just ever so slightly set it off, and you can just tell this is something unnatural, and yet it still just looks wonderful, which I think is a very impressive display of technique and concept design. And I especially just like all the subtle heart patterning around the face and neck, and all the very subtle variations of colour along the pink. Next up by Physics, we have the Atomerics, which is a very large and scary looking six-legged kaiju with a wonderful variation of coloured feathers within the wings. Next up by Maeva, we have another fun Spore caption idea with the question Maeva prompts, think about it. Where are you going to find shoes for a kaiju? That's a good point, and I think that you've done a very fantastic job just illustrating it as a Spore creation, especially the building. I think the building looks really cool. Next up by Jinan, we have the Cat Demon. I like how it's illustrated just the size of this creature. You could tell it's a very large looking kaiju, and I especially just like the fangs and the big old eyes. Next up by Alpha Dog, we have the Caprodan, the beast from below. The teeth on this look absolutely sinister, and I really like the markings around the eyes. Also, all the lava growing around the osteoderms and along the back, and I love what appears to be a bit of a volcanic shaped looking horn on the tip of the nose there, and the overall glowing effects really tie this together. Next up by Draconic Kitsune, we have King Ghidorah and a spotted guardian eel on the left, and Godzilla and a sea bunny slug on the right. I really love the varying expressions on the Ghidorah on the left there, and I also really like the glowing and the pale colour palettes, which really complements the whole sea slug and eel idea, but I also like how they're offsetted by the dark features. It adds to a very nice contrast. Next up by Hazilla, we have Mothra, Bagwan Moth Lava, and a battleship's worth of light armament. So from what I can understand, it is a Mothra lava that's basically carrying a giant navy ship, I think. I've got to say, it's a very interesting idea. I just love the very chill expression on the creature itself, and I just love how it's contrasted by these great big giant cannons. Next up by Alpha Dog is Raija, a fusion of their own OC and Raiju from Pacific Rim. I really like the scale work done along the back. It looks very consistent and very clean. The tail looks big and powerful, the musculature looks wonderful, and I really like the colour palette. Purple's a very interesting touch for a kaiju. Next up by Hyperion 9901 is a golden Tyranno-Pine. I really like all the delicate filaments on this, and it's really cool to see the overall texture of the body brought forth in 3D. And next up by Hazilla, we have Baragonth, which is based on Baroth and Baragon. Absolutely incredible construction with all the scaling and armor, especially the head itself, which looks fantastic, and I also like how the head is just ever so slightly angled, because it just shows more information on the jaw, and it looks beautiful. And I just especially like just the way you scaled out the arms and legs. I gotta say, Haz, normally I find drawing arms and legs very boring, but you find a way to consistently make it interesting to look at every time. I need to start taking notes. And next up by Sly, we have the Maned Wolf Dragon, which was our very first prompt in this series, combined with a Wendigo. I have to say, I like the poetic use of using the very first prompt for this final prompt. And the design looks absolutely wonderful. While of course it's a bit grim with it being part Wendigo, I like how just slender and elegant it looks. I think you've done a very good job on the wings in particular, and the skull looks absolutely fantastic. Next up by Dr. Terminator, we have the Siat Mikakurum, Ichthyovenator, Shin Godzilla, Autogaron, Bearded Dragon, and Therizinosaurus to create the Shirazonogaron. That is one heck of a combination of concepts, and it produced a really badass looking creature altogether. The amount of just detail in this, I can tell you have poured a lot of time into this, which I can massively respect. Just the sheer amount of features going on is stunning. I think you've done a really fantastic job on this one. My only regret is that the image is a bit small, so it doesn't really show everything off perfectly, but I must really compliment you on just your dedication to this piece. Next up, at Glad to be Chillin', we have King Caesar and Barioth. I absolutely adore the Oriental Asian themes along the face there. It's such a cool style I've never really been able to pull off myself, and with Barioth being my favourite monster, I can just really see just how much this contrasts to all the features you added in. I especially just like the decorations around the forehead, the nose, middle of all the gold outlines, and around the eyebrows. The whole thing looks stunning, and the colour palette as well is a really nice choice. Also, the varying thicknesses of the outline as well really brings it out. Next up, by ZBoy17, is a small creation of Fatalis, Rodan, and a King Cobra. I love the way that you designed the Cobra hood, and the wing construction is absolutely fantastic. Not to mention the overall posturing and the use of parts of the head crest. And ZBoy has also included a sketch of the creature, which adds a bit more dynamic to the overall shape, and I think it really nailed it in Spore. Again, I really love the Cobra hood in particular. And for another one by ZBoy17, it's Baragon, Royal Ludroth, and a Mole Cricket. My favourite part of this creation just has to be the front arms. I think just the varying spikes and also the varying parts used for the spikes just gives like a very interesting design. It's a really nice colour palette, it's a really nice choice of textures, and I especially just like how you change it up using the very large hard armour pieces around the back and also around the tail to create a segmented effect. And we have another sketch going along with this one. Again, a fantastic design, especially the tip of the tail, and I really like how the tongue procures outwards. Next up by Jenna Pothier, we have a Uterinus and a Gravemind. Made spooky just in time for Halloween. The jaw is sinister and eerie and very, very creepy and very well done, and I really loved sort of feather-like appendages going around the back of the head there. An overall very gruesome design, but very effective. Next up by Mihal, we had the Gojiraptor, which is Godzilla and a Velociraptor. A fascinating idea to combine such a lean and agile creature with such a large and bulky monster. That is really cool, and I think you've done like a very nice balance of the two different forms. I really like the shape of the head in particular, and I also like the combination of all the feathery quills and the much more subdued Godzilla spikes. Next up by Alpha Dog is Veroblin, Velociter, and a Goblin Shark. The posing on this is so sinister, it kind of makes me imagine something like in a test tube. I especially really like just how the cyan really pops out as creature, and in particular around the claws as well, so it kind of like gives me a bit of a vibe that it's got some kind of, I don't know, just something powerful going on there. And the design of the jaw is incredibly unique. Next up by Hazilla, we have the Noodle Leviathan, which is based on Manda, and Anispel's Noodle OC. Like I said before, Haz, you do such an awesome job of just making arms and legs look interesting to look at. I also just love just how badass this design looks. Like, having seen a lot of Ael's character, it's cool just seeing like such a more sinister, monstrous appearance. And I also really, really love just how long and slender and neat and consistent the design is. I do find that doing very, very long creatures can look quite warped and weird after a while, but Haz, you've absolutely nailed it here. And for our final, but by far absolutely not least, we're going off with a bang by Oreloki of her Tian Malfestio, which is based on a lion and Malfestio from Monster Hunter Generations. What a way to end. This is incredible. I think the wings in particular is what really stands out to me. Also just the tip of the tail, I just love how it almost looks like a royal cloak in a way. The tips of the horns too, just when they're covered in gold, and not to mention just a great big gold plumage. You can tell that Loki's poured in a ton of detail and time. In fact, even the environment is so rich as well. The reflection of the water down below too. This is absolutely stunning. And Loki, be proud of yourself as well. You've really nailed this one. Right. And that is the final wave. My god, you guys went so all out on this, and as I said at the very beginning, it's been an absolute pleasure. I do hope to do more prompts. I need a break though. I need a bit of a break from these kind of videos, but I gotta say, it's brought me such joy just to be able to see the sheer talent and enthusiasm, and it's just great. It's just something wonderful just about seeing people get involved in doing creative ideas and just drawing, and it's amazing. Thank you. Thank you tremendously for everyone taking part, just making this all such an incredibly huge and special thing. And as always, even though we might not be continuing with more, you're all welcome to come join in Discord, so we can at least carry on showing off all the art together and just hanging out. And I look forward to seeing just more from people in general. Thank you all so very much, and I hope you all have an absolutely amazing time. Cheers.